you could talk to that in your trials you're hearing and learning. So you talked a little bit, you're doing this on 4G now, really prepping for 5G. And I think across the board with 5G, that's one of the key areas is 4G will be a big component of 5G. It'll be a backup, a workhorse in behind it as a component there. So 4G does not go away with 5G. And with 4G, we can do a lot that helps us in learning to prepare for 5G. What kind of things are you learning in your trials? Maybe you could describe a bit, as you can, some of that trial activity, some of the learnings, some of the existing challenges that you still see out there, but things that you're learning that really drive the network slicing, where you think this is going to be something exciting and we will see more fruition as we move towards 5G.
Yeah, I guess the first thing that we learned was that slicing needs to be dynamic. And then also the slicing seems to be tied a lot to the network conditions, how your network perform at the time. And so it changes, the slices gets changed. So SLA can now plays a role what triggers a slice to change. So then the users of the network only pays for what they need and when they need it. Oh, by the way, it's probably not surprising that when you actually go and engage with enterprise, they don't want to pay for things that they don't need, and they only will pay for it when they actually need it. When they're done with it, and it better than not be charged. So the life cycle has significant changes. Like think about what we, in 2G, 3G, we make a phone call, and then 4G we browse a web. But it tend not, you use the data, you pay for the data, and that's the end of it. The same model goes into the 5G, but it's even more acute because now you are touching the Fortune 500s. You are touching a very cloud savvy IT department. No longer just the guys that subscribe to the SIM anymore. So they are pushing for a definition. Well, if you think about things like connect the car, maybe e-health, they really wanted to pay based on latency. If you can give this to me if you meet this SLA, the SLA could be to many cases actually based on some latency requirement that they give you. This could be within 5 milliseconds or 10 milliseconds. Think AR, VR, think industrial IoT cases. In those cases, if you meet the requirements, they pay. Once they're done with it, they don't pay. If you don't meet the requirements, there's also discussion to be had. So it triggers a lot of interesting discussion in terms of business case. How does the money flows? But isn't that what 5G is about? It's about business transformation. Like we recently did a trial, a very successful trial in China, in Shanghai, where you have not just the network operator, you also have the content provider, the cloud provider, Tencent, in the picture. Think about they own the content, they used to get this delivered to their consumers. We subscribe to micro channels and so on with certain amount of latency. Now, if you put in the concept of edge compute, you shorten the latency significantly, like 10x, 100x. Do you have a business model then to share some of the additional revenue? So that's the discussions ongoing, and we are optimistic that network slicing, edge compute together, partner with the improved capacity and throughput in 5G will open up a new ways of enable some money changing hands and money flows, a much healthier ecosystem, right? So you have many more players in that.
Yeah, it's exciting to hear that you're really getting some findings that really help to drive forward the fact that 5G does, with its parameters of performance that it has, and then the ability to really hone those in on the needs of the enterprise as they need it, when they need it, as they're going through their digital transformation and thinking about how they monetize what they value, that you can monetize against that value they have rather than just bits and bytes and connectivity to them. So you can really play in with opening up and creating new business models and new partnerships and new money flows, as you say there. I think that's a good thing to hear that that's coming out now in some of the trials and moving forward there. Are there other things you're seeing that you think are real gaps today still on network slicing that you think have to be addressed before we really get to that opening up the money chain, or do you feel like it's moving along quite well? We're really hitting on the needs there in terms of what we're developing.
I mean, everything is moving forward. There are challenges and learnings to be done. One of the first thing is if you, because the word dynamic kept coming up, and that really means is that the underlying network infrastructure really needs to be agile, flexible, and soft. It is not just a technical challenge, which we are solving with our ecosystem partners and customers. And I tend to have a lot more confidence in engineers solving the problem than having the rest of the company to go along with it. You still have a lot of mindset and business model challenges that we need to work out. I mentioned the work that we've done with network operators, and the cloud guys actually plays a pretty important role as well, because ultimately they have more or less cracked the how to make money off over the top, right? So they will have certain requirements that will impose on the network. Well, how do you deliver it? When you deliver it? How do I pay for it? And the other thing was security. Security is very important when you start bringing the verticals enterprise onto a public network. The network operator don't necessarily want to expose their subscriber, their network information to the enterprise, and vice versa. So security, end-to-end security becomes a very key aspect. But like I said, I have a lot of confidence that the technology problem will be solved, and we don't see anything that's really like a deal killer. It is the mindset change that we need to have. Now you're saying you might have to run some kind of a overlay network on your network today to serve a large oil company, our oil refinery. So that's coming along. What I'm hoping to do is throughout the rest of this year, we'll do a couple more these trials and even early deployment in 2018. That will give us the learnings, and we'll adjust, right? We'll adjust both the technology and our the way that we conduct, we sign contract, we stand up a contract, who does what, who's responsible, and roles and responsibility for each party. But it's exciting times, Susan, and I can't say we're quite there, but I am very optimistic that the network slicing that's been defined in CGPP will do the trick, will enable a flood of new business opportunities in the coming years.
Great. And one question I wanted to ask, in terms of looking at artificial intelligence and machine learning and the ability to really do much more automated processes around driving and creating these slicing, how critical is that? And is that something you're looking at with some of your trials and your activities at Intel?
It's really starting to now. It's pretty much all the discussion we've had, the machine learning, analytics, and AI comes into play. Because the operator wants to be able to, like, for example, many operators want to tune their own network in real time. Right? Because let's say if they actually sign an SLA with somebody to guarantee some minimum delivery latency, they need to know that. So at the very base level, machine learning, AI comes into play just for network tuning, network analytics. And we hear that over and over again. And even going into some industrial use cases, people also very interested in learning and refining their knowledge levels through machine learning, through ML and DL, machine learning and deep learning. So what we try to do is incorporate this into our use cases, into our trials as much as possible. So technology is coming along. We do actually have in our ecosystem some very clever startups that don't just do machine learning. In their where they are, but they're also monitoring what peers are doing and getting the learning from all the nodes surrounding you, what they're doing to come up with a holistic knowledge. Like if you really think about like a network infrastructure issue, you immediately get that flooded from surrounding areas. So very much so, it is becoming a forefront of a lot of our discussions, and I don't see that going away at all.
Good to hear. Now, Intel as a company plays in a lot of places sort of end to end around 5G. I'd love to hear from your perspective and your team, what is Intel really bringing to the table in terms of network slicing? What kind of products, and really where does it fit with your whole goal of what you're doing and what you're selling into the 5G ecosystem?
So Intel, you're right, we actually been working on this end-to-end. So we have our device partners on the other side that we work closely with. We have IoT group, we have autonomous driving group, and so on. For us in the infrastructure side, really focusing on NFV resource allocation, network and service orchestration, assurance, all of these things that make NFV work, which also are very much needed for the network slicing piece. So we've been investing continuously in wireless and wireline IPs, AI, machine learning IPs. We also participate actively in open source initiatives like TIP, XRAN, Core and MCore, Linux Foundation, SC. We actually were the founding members of SC Mac. 3GPP, of course, how can we forget about that? So we're investing a lot in software to build out the foundation software, because we don't actually deliver the final product. However, we found that we actually need to do reference architecture for 5G. We found it very useful to at least have the foundation reference architectures for us to go into some proof of concept with our customers. And sometimes we provide them with some software to get them started. Sometimes we simply provide support and have them do the front end case. Each case is different. One thing that it does becomes a very apparent is that because the heritage of Intel, our role in the cloud side, our role in the data center and IT, we becoming the trusted advisor when we come into the discussions, proof of concept, and so on. We're not the one that deliver the final product, but we actively and contribute our learnings, what we have done all these years in the cloud, and some of the security aspect. We actually have a security group that working closely with us. So we see our role as a technology partner, as an ecosystem builder, and working actively across the many fronts. And don't forget, we also have a very large and thriving enterprise business. So it's been really exciting and fun, Susan. My days are not bored at all.
A lot to do on your plate, and then some really good progress you've made so far. So really to summarize some of the key points I think we've really pulled out today. I mean, network slicing really needs to be dynamic. There's opportunities there, and really needs to drive and collaborate with enterprise as this is being developed and as we look to business models. And that 5G really does need to look to network slicing, and in conjunction with other things such as edge compute and the security and some of the other aspects that will really add to driving to the value that the end users really want to spend money on and value. And you need to be able to deliver that with a very strong, dynamic, agile network in 5G. And there's some really good progress being made, some continuing challenges and developments. This is certainly not a static business. No one has all the answers yet. We're working there. Quite collaborative in terms of how is this moving forward in an ecosystem. So it's really been good to talk to you on this today, Caroline. I'd like to ask you, as we sort of wrap up here, is there a call to action that you think needs to be made out there to participants? I mean, a lot's happening, but what more would you really challenge people to say, both Intel and your team, as well as the partners you have from the operators and in the enterprises, that they really should be driving towards next 12, 18 months as we move closer to getting 5G commercial network ready?
For me, it will be learning through doing. Please join us in participating, because many times I go to a conference and people say, well, how do you know 5G was successful? I don't. The only way to do it is actually go in and learn, and that's the best way. The other one is really expand your our horizon. That's a key learning. I came from the wireless background, as you know, and in our world, it's a very limited ecosystem. We know, in fact, it's a joke. You go to conference, you keep seeing the same 12 people over and over again. But for 5G, you got to expand that. So you start talking to folks you don't normally talk to, and you understand that who actually pays the bill, who's willing to adopt your technology. So be willing to try, expand your ecosystem, expand your horizon, and really all of this really becomes possible because your network underlying is much flexible and soft. And so those are the three takeaway my team is executing, and I hope that you will join us.
Great, thanks. And I would encourage everyone in the ecosystem to reach out to Carolyn and myself, interact with RCR Wireless as well, and really learn and understand as this continues to develop. And I think that's the key here. 5G is about learning, it's about doing, it's about pulling in everyone who's going to use it to really think through how it happens. And I think network slicing that enables those parameters to be set to address different needs, not a one-size-fits-all type network, but something that's much more focused on being a service enabler and the types of services and pushing to deliver new services will create a really dynamic environment going forward. So really want to thank you today, Caroline, for your participation and for your discussion on Intel's role, what you're doing today to do trials and really move this forward.
Thank you for having me.